Like,
I still do it. Like for the first few days I had it, I kept going. Like
I
when
have
I
a
get up,
shoulder
I'd be like,
twitch.
yeah. I would like start patting myself down to make sure I didn't have the wire on me.
Yeah, I do this thing where I like shift my shoulder to like get around it, like, and I don't have to do that, and I'll catch. Yeah, I'll seriously catch myself with nothing going on. I'll be like, oh fuck, there's nothing there.
You got a lot of cats behind you.
Yeah, it's their playtime. They get locked out of my room for the majority of the day, and then whenever it's like evening past work, I let them in
Mm.
so that they can enjoy.
And enjoy they do.
Oh, that was amazing.
Have you seen Shin Godzilla?
No,
So I was talking with Kenny, and we've decided that once we're all vaccinated, that we're gonna have a watch party.
I'm down.
He'll either come to my place or you'll go to his place or whatever. We'll figure something out, but uh, we're gonna watch Shin Godzilla. It's a good movie.
I trust it. He's never let me down so far. He
True.
also
And
he
it just
also likes Eat Man. I remember going to watch that in the theaters. Eat Man 3.
that was fun.
Cat, I hate to tell you, it's computer. It's not food. It won't satisfy. I have to keep stopping the cat I call Pickle from eating yogurt because I can't.
Pickle
imagine-
yogurt.
Yeah, well, just because the sheer level of Hershey squirts coming out of that cat later on, if I don't stop her, can't even imagine.
I bet.
Just like, why is there a cat rocket over your house? Oh fuck!
Be here.
I just.
So in May is when that remaster is coming out. I'm gonna be buying it,
Yep.
which means you'll own it too, because of our game sharing.
Yes. I won't be able to play it at the same time you play it, but
True.
because your
True.
whole library locks down whenever you actually play a game.
Right. Oh, the whole library? That makes sense. I thought it was just the game, the one game that you're playing.
I've been sharing with Brogan, so
You know this. You know the deal.
yeah. I guess it's just sort of like game library lockdown. Bang. Or at least that's what he gets, because I start something up and it says in 5 minutes you're going to be kicked out. So
There you go.
happy birthday.
Either way. Either way, I'm gonna experience Mass Effect for the first time. I tried playing it a while back, and I got into it, and then I got to the first time you get into the stupid motorized vehicle,
Yeah.
and at the time my game would always blue screen of death every time. I'd get into it, I'd go 5 seconds, blue screen of death, and so
Crazy.
I tried looking up some stuff, and it had something to do with my sound card at the time, and I lost interest. But hey, with fresh paint and all that stuff, it'll be a fun game to play.
I love Mass Effect. God almighty, I love Mass Effect. The second one's really what gets me. I really liked the second one. Mass Effect 2 is absolutely my bar none favorite one of those.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get like a raging chubby whenever we even mention it, it tells me it's probably a good game. So
Oh, it's fucking phenomenal. Like, the first one has got the qualities that they really built up on, because the sequel definitely takes on. I started at Mass Effect 2, and the way you begin the game, mwah, it's that kind of like, you can't, like, it hooks you hard. Wow, we're going by phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's my big screen's like right here, like in front of me,
Yeah.
where I view most of like the game shit anyway, and then sitting here and then going.
I'll be right back.
Uh-huh.
That's what I do at my job all day.
Yeah, no. So, how do you like the new headphones?
Oh, these things are badass.
Would you mind texting me the specs and what they are? Because I think because I need to pick up a new pair of these. Like I said in the message, the sound has been intermittent at best lately.
Yeah. No,
And while
these
it's
are
still good for like,
super comfy.
they are.
Uh-huh. Plus the automatic, like, mute feature. Like, it just mutes whenever it's up like that. It's really freaking nice. And these components here, the material is actually super nice. Like this is a high density plastic, and then it's got like some kind of it's a metal through here, so it's a lot sturdier. And just the fact that they're so wide, I mean, you can tell like they go all the way around your ear. And for a glasses wearing guy like myself, that's really important because it doesn't just smush the temples directly into my skull.
What, you don't want a blinding headache because your glasses have been smashed into your head?
Yeah, I can't wear the ropes on it when I'm doing it because that really kills me. But other than that,
how's the quality?
Extremely good. This has got actual 7.1 surround from the looks of it.
Wow.
It didn't say digital, so watching movies was a little weird. I was like watching shows and I kept hearing stuff behind me, and I that's always what gets me is I'll be like doing that, or if I play a game I'll be like, huh? Like that, I'll like turn around like something's going on. It freaks me out.
What's happening?
I was just talking about the fact that this Corsair set is got the 7.1 surround sound.
Dude, isn't it sweet?
Mm-hmm.
Mine has the 7.1 as well.
Yeah, send me the information because I think that's got to be.
Yeah.
Because these things are gonna die. I mean, they've had a good run.
Well, plus the fact that there's no fucking cables, like. It's so
We were
nice.
just talking about how we have like phantom like cables on us, so we have to like.
Yeah, I'm constantly like doing this or like rearranging it to where it like sits in between my legs, so I can, like it just droops.
Yeah, that's another one. Oh, speaking of changes, one of the things I changed is where I put my microphone for work now. I put it right here, so it's sitting right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this would be a good test. Which one sounds better? How I'm talking to you guys now, or if it's the same. This is another one. Or
how about now? This is coming from the blue.
You know, there's a certain like, you're louder. It has a little bit of an echo to it. The other one is just very much your voice with nothing else around it. So, like they both have equal richness in sound. The one just has more like background bounce off than.
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yep.
It works for work though.
Yep. Mine does the same damn thing.
Yeah.
I like the ice ball. It comes through really nice. It's a damn good microphone.
Oh god, yeah. For $50, it's the best microphone I have.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to do some Destiny while we're waiting for Chris? Or Scott, I mean.
Chris, Scott, whomever.
People.
Oh,
speaking of
see.
devil.
I said his name and he appears.
No Destiny, Ken. This is Shadows, goddammit.
Hey, Scott was planning on playing Destiny at one point.
Dude, I have Destiny.
Yeah, there you go.
We could play Gambit.
We could. We could totally play Gambit.
I don't know what any of that means.
You shoot the bad guys. I mean, yeah,
My
it's no
mouse
different
has been annoying today, and Razer is no longer supporting Mac stuff.
Oh, that's gross. Why?
So, what is it, Synapse or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, please attach a mouse. I'm like, I'm using the mouse. Do you not notice the mouse? I clicked on you with the mouse. Nothing.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I have to just like, and then to make it work.
Give it a little, get a little fluffing.
Yeah. If only.
Fluffing.
Are you using a different microphone today? Because you sound echoey, more echoey than normal.
Me? My microphone's just on the other side of the room.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Let's look at.
I didn't hear anything you just said.
It said, how about now?
It's definitely louder, so that's good.
Number
What
2.
microphone am I using?
242! Hey!
It says I'm using Yeti stereo microphone.
You sound better now. You're definitely less echoey. Whoa, hey, we're in a different bill angle now.
Yeah, apparently
Camera
this phone
one.
is no longer sustainable.
Camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2.
I've been having issues with my network. I need to figure out.
from really easy to hear to very quiet.
And here he is.
Yep.
How's that?
Yep.
Much better.
No, Comcast is throttling my cul-de-sac's internet
Why?
because they can't handle the service. I was talking to Ziply Fiber about this the other day. God damn it, I'm doing the thing I
I've
didn't
been
want to
getting
do.
letters from them like crazy. They must be exploding or something.
They kind of are. The question is when it comes right down to it, whether they're going to be able to handle the burden if they take all of Comcast business.
I mean, I feel
So-
like anyone who can make like actual fiber can handle it. I mean, I know Comcast can handle it. It's just that they are shit. Their infrastructure is shit.
That's
You know it's true.
only the start of the problems. I mean, fiber would be good just anyway. I mean, like, all the channels you could ever ask for.
Fiber.
Fiber.
Much better.
You fixed it, Bill?
No, I just took off my headphones. Kimmy likes listening to the conversations when she's down here, so I like being nice.
Nice. Nice.
So, got world building on the docket.
Mm-hmm.
That should be quite fascinating.
So we talked about combat mechanics last time.
Yeah, I'm still beefing those up. I ended up pushing out to the point where I was discussing damage, healing, and death. I also added the powers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got through health levels and their explanation, pain penalties, death and near death, and damage and healing is under construction. Damage and healing is under construction.
Cool.
Damage and healing is under construction.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay.
So I ended up separating because I realized that powers kind of have the same thing. A lot of the mechanics in Shadows will have this kind of weird dualistic methodology to it. It's kind of like with magic in and of itself, magic has what is referred to as direct and indirect kinds of combat magic, which direct damage or direct kinds of combat magic are things like you'd normally expect. Fireballs, lightning bolts, shooting out ice shards, anything that deals with, you can see it in Diablo 2, it's more or less kind of the same idea.
Diablo.
Yeah. So, any of those kinds of forces or whatever. Then you have the indirect damages, which are things that, attack the human psyche or do things that a human body wouldn't do. Like, I gave the example of causing a person's blood to boil. Those are forms of indirect damage that can actually be used, but they're insanely hard to procure, which is the reason why, being able to do that to someone consistently would be very difficult. So I set it up as being like a target 9 with 5 successes minimum, just to enact even a small portion of what you'd need, because magic is basically being used to attack itself, given the fact that all living beings are composed in some part with it. So, creating a force that does its natural thing, whatever gets in the way, that's just nature. But trying to make something like the human body, which is controlled by a sentient mind, trying to make it do something it's not designed to do, even self-destruct in that particular way, is extremely difficult.
That sounds reasonable.
It also answers the mechanical question of, what if I want to blow his ass up? And there's no baseline. If you get a really wibbly GM, you'd be like, I don't know, just get your regular, average 1 success, whatever, and then they're like, target 6, and then the guys are like, been working on this character for 5 years. You just blew him up.
He deserved it.
Oh, the DM's doing the job. Yeah, they do deserve it.
Yeah. Shadows is definitely a GM-heavy system for sure. It definitely relies on them to be able to really sit sit and referee the situation. Because if they can't do that or can't discern it, it's probably more complicated. But luckily, I think the systems themselves aren't like, I don't know, like up until the armor stuff got fixed. Like that to me was like, okay, yeah, you have to be sort of like mildly smart to do. Now at least the armor doesn't require like having to write out your math and show your work afterwards.
What you mean those pictures with a different person looking this way and looking that way, and there's differential equations that are just moving across the screen?
Right.
Yeah, no, that would help.
I'm okay without that.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
So, I don't know. I think that we probably should just be an open forum. I basically spewed out a lot of crap from what I was doing. I'm actually kind of interested if you guys have got like questions, concerns, anything that's in the system that maybe you've encountered and was like, or what if we had sort of thing. Do a little feedback. Hit me back.
No structure.
No structure.
Well, I'm trying to think, like, there's so many different things that we could talk about.
I don't know. Anything that, like, take the last 3 game sessions of any sort and just kind of run through it. Is there something that kind of was like, I wonder if, or anything along those lines? Because to me, a lot of this makes sense, and unfortunately, I have to rely on you guys and the sort of, like, whenever you have a question mark, it helps me understand where a weak point might be. Or just a point that needs polish. Not so much a weak point, but anything that needs polish. Because I can still go on with the combat systems so far that I haven't.
Well, I mean, the major one for me has always been trying to understand the implementation of direct and indirect magic within the mechanics in combat.
Yeah.
And armor, I agree with you, armor was always kind of wibbly wobbly.
Yeah, it was really shifty. Like, the mathematics were fine, but they were just too up there.
Much. Yeah. So I mean, what it comes down to is like I'm so used to, at least from my perspective, just doing from the role playing standpoint, that having the armor and the combat mechanics fleshed out just means all that there's left for concerns for me is just world building.
Yeah.
Like the actual,
the
just
world building in and of itself. Yeah.
the end of itself, the storytelling, what is the history and origin? Because I mean, that's something that you and I have kind of discussed with, like with the werewolf stuff, and I kind of wanted to get your take on potentially the direction of origin.
Like the origin of the current world, or the origin of a specific archetype.
I would say like not just the specific archetype, but like some of the things that we discussed, like when we write the different things, we're telling different sides of the creation story.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, what we were talking about at the time was that Night City is a reflection, or at least in the werewolf lore that I'm writing, a direct reflection, or the cycle of time coming back again to that whole Pangea and Eden concept. With, the werewolves have one story, the vampires have one story, the Nephilim have another, the demons have another, just like the White Wolf stuff, but more similarities. Like there's a core underpinning.
Right. So as far as like the way that it goes, I mean, you're talking like, the origin of Night City and structuring, that'll be right there at the forefront. But as far as the world is concerned, and I mean, you could basically take it as what were the elemental forces involved, and how did it all come into being? Like, who's got the right stuff? Kind of weirdly enough, it seems to be a mixture of everybody. Like, everybody seems to have the right answer to some degree. You look at the vampires, and they have one point of view. Now, they're more or less the antithesis to Christianity in about every way. They were referred to as Cainites for a reason, because Cain was considered to have been turned into a vampire by the original lore. As it turns out, Cain was there, he was involved, but it actually dealt with the Tower of Babel and a weird little spell book that he ended up finding, and wound up sort of exacting his own personal, more. He was able to satisfy his throbbing erection for various forms of destruction. So he
Throbbing, huh?
Yep. As a matter of fact, the reason why
Eat a big bag of girthy cocks, huh?
he is a girthy cock. He was anyway. Before his total destruction somewhere in the last few years prior to present timeline. Whenever he got woke up again because the Giovanni clan got stupid and decided they were gonna wake his ass up thinking he was gonna be some sort of vampiric messiah, and as it turns out he was just angry and hungry.
Yeah, well, that's something I wanted to lock down as well, because when he came back, he wiped out a lot of the werewolf clans.
Yeah, well, the werewolves were, in his opinion, the werewolves were, they were kind of a necessary thing, but they sort of represented, sort of a power, a might, a force of nature, and being awakened the way that he was, saw how the world had twisted itself over, and he was just basically utterly disgusted with the present state of affairs. There wasn't any werewolf that could ever truly match the real majesty of what they used to be, and there weren't vampires that were pillars of true power either. And so he went hunting the antediluvians, but he started with all of their children right down on their bloodlines, trying to basically reabsorb all of vampire kind back into himself. That was the original mission. He was going to diablerize the entirety of the vampire race.
Diablerize.
Okay. So I was actually, and the reason I was asking that is I've gotten to the creative mood where I can start working on that stuff again. So what I'm thinking of doing is sending you that information so you can let me know which of the clans that we created were wiped out.
Yeah.
Dude, you made so much good shit.
So that I can twist that into the writing.
Right.
Because I think because I finally pinned down what was stopping me was the fact that if I don't know which werewolf clans exist, I don't know how to inherently write their narrative, their collective story.
Right. Yeah.
I've got the beginning. I've got all that beginning crap and summation just already written. But my thing is just well, this is done. So then I can push the rest of that information out, knowing which ones exist, who's still talking to each other, who's not. Where the rivalries stand within Shadows. They're all together, but are they really together?
Yeah. So
Are there any werewolf clans outside the picture? Because
yeah, there would be.
I don't mean to hijack.
Hijack. He actually asked the question.
And Scott's got some really good points too, if you want to take a look at the chat. So while I do that, yes, I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
Mine.
Uh-huh.
It says I have to whip my head back over here to my other monitor.
You whip your hair back and forth?
So this will be kind of cool.
You heard
I
that
have to stand up and do something, but I'll be able to hear and talk to everybody. So I'm just going to disable my camera, but I'll be here. 1 second. But yeah.
Oh, you would be there, wouldn't you?
I inadvertently opened all the tabs in my Shadows thing. I'm going to reload my webpage. We have to understand, my Shadows, oh my god, it did it again.
All the tabs.
I don't know why it's doing it. That's fucking weird. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Because I remember we put it on the OneDrive. Fuck, that just did not translate. Well, I'm taking that the fuck out. It's like I just have like werewolves, and it's like werewolves. Not a fucking road. Okay, so I pulled it up. Sorry, I gotta do this shit now. Oh yeah, you're good. Yeah, I got you. Let me go down to the. So we have the main protagonist. We have the people of the Amate Sodat army of the Sword Wolf, which makes sense with the like that and the whole majestic. That's what they were. So we had Father Wolf. We had Mother Luna. Father Wolf is dead. Mother Luna is mad and, well, frankly, the moon now, because she took over the concept of the goddess Ni, the Sumerian goddess of the moon. So she took over. She was a priestess and then became avatar and then personification of the moon. All right. Father Wolf, that whole Fenris at the end of time thing. He's dead, but not really dead. Yeah, it's the if I steal a concept from the 40K universe with the Space Wolves, they're waiting for Lehman Russ to return. They call it the Wolf Time. So when everything ends, it's I love the concept of Wolf Time, but I don't want to steal that copyright.
I mean, it makes
Stop
sense.
now.
Because if Games Workshop and the Black Library have proved anything with regards to 40K, they are litigious as shit.
Oh, are they?
Oh, they especially Games Workshop, they will destroy you.
I will destroy you.
And they make no apology about it. No, we're trying to bring people to the games, and everybody who does it goes, "You're the only game in town. We give you your money, but we know you're full of shit." So you've got sorry, I got distracted. So you got Father Wolf, so the Wolf Time, that at least the ancient Sumerian wolves knew that Father Wolf would return. I don't know whether we want to kind of say that the current werewolves know that at some point Father Wolf will return and just wreck shit at the end of time. I don't know if that's a part of the lore, because we have the Sirius and Priestesses of the Moon, which are inherently mysterious, and they only come down from Mother Luna in times of crisis. Which I can only, if I were to kind of twist the lore just a little bit with Cain wiping everything out, the only reason some werewolves survived is because the Priest of the Moon comes saying, like, shit's gonna be bad, listen to us. And some listened, some didn't. Those who didn't listen, those did. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Who are you asking? Everybody? The group?
Yeah. Well, also the main protagonist of our story, which is the GM who created things, and I don't want to trample on what he's already done lore-wise.
True.
So we have let me just go down to the clans. I've got the main. I had a lot of fucking editing in this. I need to just accept it. So we have the Blood Wolf in Tahaza Ma'ur, which is the Lord of Battle and Blood Wolf, because Ur actually translates into wolf, which I thought was actually yeah, it's incredibly ironic. For me. Because looking into the Sumerian culture and going into the translations and all this stuff, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Well, shit, I'm gonna take that.
You yoinked it.
I'm just like, I'm not gonna argue with serendipity. So anyway, so you have the Blood Wolf. So they worship the Blood Wolf and Totem. Mona is not a goddess, but a betrayer of the people. Blood wolves view humanity as the anathema or an affront to the essence of Eden or origin. Now, this is all in the past sense.
Right.
This mentality would, of course, have evolved, and that's something I want to kind of flush out with UD at some point. Is what I think what we do is, we have the description of the tribe and how the tribe's views changed. Because I think that would actually be a kind of a fascinating aspect. Because what Scott had mentioned is supplementary material.
Yeah. Yep.
So a lot of
It'll
this
be
stuff
needed.
can go in,
And there's a lot of supplemental stuff.
can go into supplementary stuff, but I like that concept of if we write from the perspective of origin, and then how the current perspective has moved or shifted into different ways. Like, so, do the Blood Wolves? Do they really still view humanity as an affront to origin? Right. But they represent, and you'll like the themes here. They represent nobility of brutality and violence. They hunt all those who do not directly adhere to their concept of war against humanity. That's the concept, war against humanity. Viewing the world of spirits as something to be controlled. Anything that cannot be controlled is the enemy. Blood wolves see the house of the heavenly moon, and I'll get to that, not as distant cousins, but as cowardly dogs sucking on the tits of the bitch mother.
Jesus. Tell us how you really think.
I wanted them to have like a visceral hatred and kind of put that into that. So that's what I came up with. So that's the Blood Wolf, and then we have the Blessed Wolf. And this is what we're. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. So the Blood Wolf is in a subcategory. If you guys are on that page,
Right.
or can have access to it, so subcategory. So the House
Everyone
of
knows you
Dust
have access
and
to it.
Ash. So bit Ipur no can't see it under the editing, but the House of Dust and Ash is what happened after Father Wolf died and Mother went insane. So the various houses split. So you have the House of Dust and Ash with the Blood Wolf. So they represent the nobility and brutality and violence. Then you have the Blessed Wolf. They worship the blessed. This tribe worships the Blessed Wolf. So they're called the Blessed Wolves. The Blessed Wolves, they're the totem of joy and light. Joy and light. There's quotations on that one. They are ecclesiastical zealots and devotees of the hunt and the nobility of the people. Like they love the nobility of what the people are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They represent nobility of divine understanding, and basking in the light of their understanding, they bind themselves in darkness and are creatures of shadow.
Well, and
They serve as prophets and priests for that otherworldly realm and bind themselves to spirits. They hunt all those who do not believe in the word of light. They are creatures of the world. The hunt is all in the light cast by shadow. They see the house of the heavenly moon as heretics of the highest order that have been corrupted by the words of the Father. So the House of Dust and Ash actually killed these three wolf clans, or the three original wolves, killed Father Wolf. So I took the story, instead of all the wolves killed them, only 3 of them did. Okay? So you have the priesthood, you have nobility, and then you have the virtuous wolf. They have the totem of purity. Virtuous wolves are obsessed with lineage and purity. They believe that the legacy of Father Wolf lies in the blood of his children, and from that blood, they can build a new Eden or origin. The records of the virtuous wolves catalog the entirety of the human population in werewolf bloodlines. They see it as their garden to tend as they choose. They're not the nice ones. Don't look at that. So they hunt the impure. So like their hunt is the impure.
There's like a whole world all within the werewolves.
Oh, they are fucking white supremacists, and that's the thing is we can make them into the modern world as white supremacists. Like, no, purity, yeah,
Great
like
Nazi werewolves. My God.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you can. But that's the thing is you can have them in history as Nazi werewolves too.
It's just making me think of Twilight with like. Now we have to worry about the werejaggers, or not Twilight. What am I thinking of? The
Oh well, you said Twilight, so.
Yeah.
I know I said Twilight. I meant
Abraham Lincoln Werewolf Hunter. Oh, Vampire Hunter.
That's
my
such a
gosh,
great movie.
My brain is not working. True Blood,
Oh,
True Blood.
where they had like were panthers and half werejackal beastkins or whatever, and it's like really.
Yeah, because here's the thing: True Blood stole from White Wolf. They outright stole from him.
The romance author who dipped her toe in the supernatural. I mean, there's like a literal scene where they're like having sex with a ghost and
What?
like,
Yeah, it's a weird fucking
Dude,
show.
the main character's name is Suki. Like, I can't.
Suki?
Suki Man.
Like Sucky or?
No,
the
Suki.
chef.
Sookie.
Yeah, Suki.
Let's admit that the chef is the greatest thing in that show, though.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, Lafayette.
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 But in the book, he dies at the end of book 1, and in the show, they're like,
He's so
"No,
good.
he's the best thing, so we're keeping him all the way through."
Good. I'm glad they made that decision because I didn't know in the books they killed him.
In the book, he's the one in the trunk.
Oh,
When Lafayette like finds a body in the trunk, well, in the book, it's Lafayette's body that they find in the trunk.
that's even funnier now that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that aside,
Suki.
now so
Suki.
It just sounds like somebody with a speech impediment trying to say nookie and getting it all wrong.
Well, it's a British
gonna go
person
get my
trying to
Suki
play
tonight.
it's a Brit trying to do a Louisiana accent.
So we covered the House of Dust and Ash. Now, of course, Dust and Ash, the symbolism within that region, of course, everything about the murder of Father Wolf. And then you have the House of the Heavenly Moon. House of the Heavenly Moon is composed of the Wolf of Tempest. Is the tribe of the firstborn. They follow the totem of the storm. They must always live up to Father Wolf's legacy and understand the legacy of the people more than most. So, like, they understand the truth of the matter. Like, regardless of how much time has passed, they're like, yeah, no, this is really what's going on. They're in many ways the most ferocious in the hunt, mirroring the legacy of madness passed on from Father Wolf. So his ferocity in the hunt is what they're kind of like a force of nature,
Right.
the storm. Of all the tribes, they feel the most inherent guilt over the murder or the death of Father Wolf. So we're playing on those themes. They hunt on both sides of the veil, maintain the balance, which was their role. So they still maintain true to the role. They're often the ones who call the conclaves of war because of that status. Like, regardless of political rivalries and everything else, because they are the tribe of the firstborn, everyone inherently, instinctually goes, shit, do we have to listen to them? Yeah, we might as well. So they don't know why they do it, but the reason they do it is because of that instinct. They represent the nobility of shamans. So essentially, they're shamanistic. So that's where we can put in the whole elemental geomancy and elemental magic that some werewolves utilize. and they view the House of Dust and Ash as lost children, whose constant betrayal of the path and the people will continue to bring sorrow to the heart of Mother Luna. I don't know if you guys are reading this as well. I'm just gonna continue doing this until you tell me to shut up.
Well,
Hey, you're doing good, man. This is great.
Where is this written?
It
Because I remember reading this before, and then I'm like looking through my bookmarks, and I have nothing.
okay.
Here, I'll give you a link. I
Oh
got
my
you,
God,
fam.
Jesus, God.
Give you a
I
link.
did not need to see that shit.
Yeah, you did. It's better
No,
not
you
awaken
should.
anything inside of you.
No, I'm fucking turgid. Didn't know how that came. Go on.
Go on.
So I sent you the link, and then we have the Wolf of Visions. So essentially, the totem of seers. So they're actually prophets. Whereas you have the priest on the one end, you have the prophet. So they see the world. Wolves of Vision are the tribe's names. Wolves of Vision are exactly that. They're prophets and seers of the people, and have a forward-looking approach to existence. They're also called the Inquisitive Ones, align themselves with progressive nature and evolution of societies. So they actually work within technology, right?
Techno wolves.
Because they see the bigger picture, right? Yeah, techno wolves. I mean, here's the thing is, we're borrowing a lot from White Wolf, but we're
gonna twist it up.
we're dusting it up and tweaking it into the conception of the Wolf Shadows. So a lot of the stuff that when you look at that you see crossed off are some of the notes that I took with everything else. And by the way, some of the language that White Wolf used is part Sumerian and part other languages and shit like that. I mean, they cobble the crap out of it. There's no uniformity with regards to the language that they used and the naming of these things. The only consistency that we have with them is the part, because they understood that meant wolf. I went further and actually took and actually went into Sumerian, fully Sumerianizing the names, not summarizing, Sumerianizing.
God damn it!
Get it right.
Ah, meatball.
Yeah, I totally dad
Jeez.
joked the goddamn Fire Handbook.
Startled the living crap out of me.
What startled you?
Meatball.
Oh, I thought you said people, not meatball.
No, I said meatball.
So they
Because
see the house,
my dog was chasing him, so he leaped up here and just like, ah.
freaked out. So they see the House of Dust and Ash as an archaic and relic of ignorance that threatens the progress of the people. Okay? Like its evolution as a people. They seek knowledge and balance of the people's existence between the worlds. So you're kind of seeing the difference between the House of the Heavenly Moon and the Dust and Ash with these two alone. Then we go to He Who Hunts in the Shadow.
Oh man, don't even start on that. That just makes me think of Harry Dresden, the He Who Walks Behind.
This tribe is they who hunt in the shadows. That's just their name. It's a long ass name. They're not called anything other than that. It's just they who hunt in the shadows. Couldn't it be simpler? No, you don't even say that to them. You call them anything else, like a slur or anything else, like, no, we are the ones who hunt in the shadow. What do you mean? No, that's the entire name. I don't get that. Why can't you just do it?
So they gotta be fucking difficult, that's why.
Yeah. So I figured that would be kind of funny to play with, like personality-wise. So they have the Totem of the Sacred Hunt. I haven't really flushed that one out as much as I want, because I think that's where I kind of stopped. But I'm going to pick up on that one. But they recommend. So they're like the shadow assassins, right?
Right.
They're what a werewolf in the purest sense of a hunter is. Not vicious, not raging, like the two others, but they're just the cold, calculating they who hunt in shadows. The name is meant to inspire terror. They refer to it as nothing else, and they've got that loner aspect. Then you have the dead one, and so it says basically translation of the Sumerian was dwell in darkness and the dead ones will. They worship the totem of the grave. They are as elusive as the shadows they hunt. They are whispers of death upon which their prey flee. That's what I left that at. Kind of going into that. And then I had the Ravager. So whereas all these other Sumerian names are just long descriptions, because the importance of Sumerian names is the longer the name, the more impact of the magic behind the name, right?
Was that right?
Mm-hmm. And then you've got the Ravager wolf, which is literally just Abatu-ur, and Abatu means destroy. So
About to
represent,
destroy you.
yeah, about it, yeah, right. So nice, I like how you did that. So essentially, what you got there is he says the totem of ending. So it's basically fury and destruction. That's it. It's not the same as the battle wolf, which is battle, or the storm wolf. It's the sense of this is the elemental representation of absolute destruction. But the reason it's part of the heavenly moon is because it's a part of that cycle. If you take a look at how they all kind of work together and how that flows. Okay. And then we have the third one. So this is the one I kind of flushed out a little bit more. A lot of that yellow shit, if you see it, just kind of ignore because that's taken directly from not Werewolf the Apocalypse, but Werewolf the Forsaken. And I don't inherently I like the concept, but don't like the concept. And I'll get to that in a minute. So with this is you have the ninth tribe outside of the moon. So like the new moon. They're called the soulless ones. Translation actually of what I wrote was they're the slaves of sin and sorrow.
Sounds
Damn,
like a
dude.
great club.
Right? They are followers of the second sun. So we're playing on those old themes again.
Mm-hmm.
They're the followers of the second son, and jealously corrupted by evil wild spirits prior to the change in dark rituals that take willing and unwilling wolves from other tribes to become something dark. They worship the totem of sorrows. So when we take a look at the history of the wolves as being the hunters and keepers of balance, humanity was struggling to be able to keep up with that hunt. So they bound the old ancient wolf spirits together. That's part of history that's in there. We can discuss that. We don't think this is more about this. So when you have this, you have basically, they got corrupted well before they actually became werewolves. So that corruption from the evil spirits went into the process as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Which affected. So they represent the negative qualities of Father Wolf. All the negative qualities. And the symbolism is that society needs to cast out a scapegoat, a symbol of a negative idea to sacrifice and rid society of, which is inherently, as Scott can testify to you and your knowledge, is a kind of an intrinsic concept back then, is the scapegoat, the concept of Solon, Jesus.
Literally placing your hands on a goat to give it your sins and then chasing it out of town.
Bingo.
Oh, I thought that's.
So we're playing.
Yeah. A literal thing.
We're playing.
Well, no, I thought that the scapegoat was like the sacrifice of the lamb, not the chasing it out of town. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same concept. It's because when you take a look at the Sumerian culture and then moving forward, everything else, there are a lot of examples of. That's where the concept of Christianity is the fact that why did symbolically Jesus need to die in the Bible? Because he represents taking on the sins, dying as that sacrificial goat, and then redeeming as a result.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Give me 1 second. I need to reply to my wife.
Leviticus
So-
16.
Where are you at with all that, D? Making sense? You following along all that good stuff?
Okay. So the soulless ones are sealed in silver chains. So the soulless one. Sorry, I need to edit the shit out of this because this is me drunk writing, or my usual writing. The soulless ones are the soulless one. Is sealed in silver chains. For if it is released, it would swallow the world. So that's bringing in the whole Fenris concept, right?
Oh, Fenris.
Yep. Why not? So whereas the other wolves embrace duality, two wolves, i.e., life mates, but they did not become one like the other tribes. So when you take a look at the concept, it's just like one wolf. It's one singular wolf. History has lost the sex of that wolf, so it's irrelevant. It's a nebulous concept. They're just referred to as taking away gender concepts and that. It's a singular entity that's just pure evil.
I misheard you, and I thought you said ginger concepts, and it's like, oh wow, going deep there, huh?
So,
Guys, gals, non-binary
the thing is, when I'm talking about the others, the Stormwolf and everything else, it's actually referring to two individuals that have merged into a singular concept. So you essentially have two individuals who are life mates representing the Stormwolf, or two individuals that were this in the beginning, in the origins. They were mates. And then over time, that gradually became one entity, right? Because what we're working on is the concept of duality and what happens when you break up the duality. And the importance of not going to an extreme, but achieving balance. So the soulless are just one entity versus the two that conceptually became one. They are the original betrayers. They were corrupted by evil spirits and turned fallen tribes. So essentially, they viewed the House of Dust and Ash as gullible fools to be played with, and the House of Heavenly Moon as lapdogs to false gods. So what they did, and I was going to get into this, was the fact that they're the ones who turned the House of Dust and Ash. They took that nobility, that priesthood, that purity, and they twisted it and convinced those three to kill Father Wolf. So whereas in the White Wolf stuff, they all collectively killed Father Wolf, this plays upon old themes of betrayal, duality, and what it means to move away from the balance, and how balance gets disrupted within this universe. And that's why I always refer to it as origin more than creation, because creation happened. This is the origin of how they came to be. So you have the soul. So for me, the ninth tribe is completely out of everything else. They're not welcome in among other wolves because of what they are, because they're just fucking evil.
Evil!
And ironically,
They're swear wolves, not werewolves.
ironically, it's like the candle that burns bright. They're also stronger than most of the other werewolves.
That was so dad joke. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's going to continue here, by the way.
I like it. I accept this in my life.
Oh, it looks like I want to become famous.
Yeah, I want to become VOD famous.
No, I've really.
We could just buy followers. Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, that seems like a stupid fucking idea.
You know, we're gonna get followers the old-fashioned way. By being consistent, no
Privately.
lives, and possibly basements. At least that's how I see it. And I'm fine with this.
Yeah,
You are fine with it.
I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about, Scott, with the archetypes. So a lot of this stuff needs to go into like the
Oh,
secondary
this is all supplemental stuff. This is very much a heavy supplemental kind of approach. Because...
Dee's like, oh god, this is too much.
But
This
that's
is
where,
for Puck 3.
but that's where I wanted your perspective is the fact that because you said that some of these were gone, which ones are gone, and with them being gone, how does their inherent legacy change or shift? If that makes sense.
Well, yeah. So the ones that are gone, I have to go through what you've got going on there because there are the impact was widespread and it what appeared to be random. There were 2 clans, if I recall. Yes, there were 2 that got completely wiped out entirely, which is saying something because it was one dude, and all of vampire kind knew that shit was going down wrong, and that was whenever they had what they refer to as the surge, where vampires of all clans were creating caitiff for an extended period of time, where they just kept turning people into vampires, none of which were actually sired properly. They were all just turned and then left to their own devices to survive on their own. And so this huge wave of vampiric orphans that are all throughout Night City that have no idea why they've been turned, have no idea what their powers are, no idea of any of it, because it was in response to Kane's attempt to try and consolidate the species. And so they rejected that and became, wantonly promiscuous, I guess is probably the way to do it.
Lots of sex.
In a sense. They basically just, like I said, caitiff are the orphans. They are a clanless vampire, and there's literally a whole clan of caitiff now as a result, because their survival instincts kicked into high gear, and they had to try and find a way to survive.
And I kind of see that as the same with the survivors from wolves as well. I mean, one of the things that we could take a look at doing is the fact that you have three in the House of Dust and Ash, 5 in the House of Heavenly Moon, and the Soulless. We want to have the Soulless, in my opinion, just because they're really just a really good enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Well, and I'm a twisted fuck, so I like to be able to use twisted shit.
So I think it would be kind of an interesting dynamic to achieve a sort of quasi-balance within the werewolves.
Yeah.
By having 2 of the tribes of the Heavenly Moon die, so that you have 3 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's that at the table with Vasile, it's an even quorum of people who are diametrically kind of opposed to each other, philosophically.
Well, that's kind of the thing, is that he had to consolidate these tribes. Now, of course, it wasn't nearly as in depth. Like, I'm tweaking the history of that because I went through and role played those situations out. Like, I established the current council that's now in place, and these clan leaders are, they had opposition to each other. There are still members of various werewolf clans that are absolutely, that are absolutely involved with a lot of what's going on here. What? Why? BigFollows.com. Anyway.
That's what Scott was saying earlier
Yeah.
about becoming famous.
I keep getting comments on these videos that have nothing to do with real people. It's just a bot. This is like, oh, this channel sucks. I'll put in a vor pornographic link that they might click on. And I'm going like,
Is that what they do?
yeah. I keep getting vor
Jeez.
links. I don't know why.
Oh, you click on the links?
No, it has vor in the name, so I'm like, no.
Oh. Okay,
You're like,
good.
I'm feeling hungry. Let's go check it out.
Right.
So I mean, that's kind of how I'm conceiving of the concept, because that actually creates a really interesting power dynamic. Because the way that I wrote it is, the House of Dust and Ash. I mean, they're kind of the things that natively tear down human society. Concepts of purity and nobility and war, right? So they represent the negative aspects of humanity. Whereas the others, you have progressive thinkers, you have shamans, you have the hunters, you have the destroyer.
Three of Worlds!
You actually have the more elemental connection, the more intrinsically natural connection.
Right.
So
We have light fluffs.
yeah, and that's the House of Dust and Ash, is the fact that they took the human concepts with them
Right.
when they changed, and they adhere to it because they adhere to it out of fear. We have to cling to our human concepts. Whereas the House of the Heavenly Moon basically says, no, we can cling to our human concepts, but we also must, cling to the more animalistic side, to nature and everything else, and things like that. I mean, that's kind of how I inherently kind of conceive those type of things.
Yeah. I still can't escape the whole thing about Nazi werewolves. I'm gonna end up messing with that at some point.
Yeah, and I thought you'd like that. I mean, I
Just don't Google that.
Don't Google Nazi werewolf. Got it.
My luck, and with my search history, it's gonna wind up at Rule 34 for sure, and I'm gonna be very unhappy.
Isn't that your default search engine?
Rule 34 is my default search engine.
Well, and that's something that we can play with in the supplementary material, as well as the history of how they play through history, because it's the whole concept of, they're actually kind of they're supremacists, whereas the battle wolves are just like part of the, like, you could have battle wolves in Miltech,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
They're in war.
They're everywhere.
We're gonna...
Like, there's God, I'm trying to remember who it was, but before, my buddy Sean, he ended up. So Sean is now published, I believe, and he's been working on that for years. But he's published, and he's got this whole new secondary series running right now. It's the initial ideas came from out of the way that that Shadows was run, and he ended up twisting it up into his own thing. So he's got a really neat character concept. It's no longer a part of the world as it sits. He's got a character with the same name and concept, but the stories that he's built are all his stuff, built in his version of the same thing. But he's got these really incredible artists doing artwork for him and stuff. I've seen some of the shit, and I'm like, oh my god. It's not Shadows, but because of where it came from, I'm like, it's so fucking close to the heart. Like, I can't wait. Can't wait to do the same thing, and talk to artists and things like that, and work shit out where these stories start developing, the artwork and the concepts, and like, to be able to see it. That's the part that's crazy to me, because he's created a whole backstory about this corporation that was built and developed in a cyberpunk, in a cyberpunk world setting, and they're at war with the Fae, and the Fae, they have a long, like, family lifeline of deceit. It's kind of like if the Middle East were suddenly fairies and they just couldn't stop squabbling. But I mean, it's a really fucking awesome setup, and he's got a really gritty kind of writing style, so I'm loving the fact that he's been out there and doing that stuff. But that's part of what I can't wait to see, is like finding artwork and stuff like that. The fun of it is being able to see it come into like fruition, to have it manifest in some fashion or another. I can't wait to see some of the art that can possibly come from out of this, and to throw it into the CRB on top of that. I mean,
Yeah.
But the werewolf stuff, it's gonna be like a full-on other book. Like, no, it's not. I think supplemental in a sense, and I go like, yeah, they're like this big. They're, they've got like the archetype and how you can tweak it a little bit, a few extra powers here and there, that kind of shit. This is gonna be like flop, and it's gonna be like a whole other core rulebook in and of itself. But it will allow, at least in my opinion, it will allow it'll allow the super nerd to really dive in and get super invested if they want to specialize in a certain way. The only thing I'm thinking of is that I want to kind of want to avoid the Way of Rifts. If anybody's ever played that, I had
8 billion books.
Yes, actually, this is the crazy part. I've played in Rifts. I played with somebody who knew them inside and out, and when we would game, he would tote his military-sized duffel bag with all of the books that he had, and this thing weighed 60 to 70 pounds, and he would just like that, and it's just like, what page is this at, and what OCC, and like, I mean, Kevin Sembega was, I don't know, his editing needed help. I don't even know that he ever actually had an editor. Like all.
He's just writing, huh?
Well, I mean, he had a dedicated system, and
This is my everyday carry.
yeah.
That's my everyday carry as a DM. 4 binders and 6 books.
Yeah, that's about right. But I mean, that was psychotic. There was so much. I mean, I loved playing in it because of how crazy everything went, but
Riffs.
Well, the answer is yes. You just have to figure out what the question is, right?
right. Yeah.
So the little table of contents thing that I leaked is from Morden Kanan's Tome of Foes, which is a D&D supplement. And I think an approach like that would be really good to flesh out all of these different archetypes that we have, like the vampire courts and the corporations and the Nephilim, and like those, even if it was 20 pages per thing, that would be a real cool way. I mean, what Bill's written so far is like 12 pages.
Yeah.
And
it's all lore. I think that would actually be kind of cool, is to actually write probably 2 variants, because he could definitely do the lore and history part of it. Like this is the way I see it in my head, as far as like how this stuff can go, because he's really good at developing the
Dude, Bill did an incredible job with
yeah,
this.
like he basically dissecting the history, adding his little things, and then basically more or less allowing us to assimilate it in an easier way. But
yeah,
from my end, I would basically love to see how that can be put together, and then of course put our heads together to get it all formatted out in such a way that it comes out nice and pristine with no grammatical errors and stuff like that, the usual shit. But then tacking on, what I would do is just go through all of his stuff, get really entrenched in that, and then throw out 3 or 4 short stories of specific characters that were involved during those particular moments or during major events, and because that's what I want to do, is I love the fiction writing element. So if I've got like a stable foundation, I could go like, okay, and I could do that for every one of those things, for vampires, demons, all of it.
That's something that we talked about as well, was using, I was focusing on this because this is something that I'm familiar with only because I researched the shit for a character.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is this comes from research for just a specific one character.
Yep.
So, I mean, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of work on this in the next few weeks, on and off, because benefit of doing social distance learning with the kids is I am right here and I can write. And I'm actually in a good mental headspace, finally. Fucking took forever.
I'm glad you got there, though.
And bitching aside, to to finally work on this because this is really a passion project for me. I love this lore. Like, D, who is my favorite character that I've ever created?
A rod.
Yeah. Arad Lugal is, so I'll describe this character. This is why this kind of inspired us. So Arad Lugal is actually a werewolf of origin. He was a seneschal of the Wolf King. And, well, of course, back then, you know, vampires and werewolves got loggerheads over stuff, pissed off them to such an extent that he was sealed in a coffin of silver. At which point, Black Sun, if you guys remember.
I remember that name.
Yeah, yeah. That's where I know Oberon, by the way. Rest in peace.
Avalon, yeah.
Avalon. Bye, homie. Well, that still shook me up too, by the way.
John Doe's was so much better though.
But they were doing an archaeological dig, found this silver coffin, opened it up. So D and I had fun playing with the fact that he doesn't understand English. But he was a seneschal. He's a political creature, right? But I played him off as playful. He's just trying to understand how modern society works. Now, the thing is about the ancient Sumerian dialect is the way that we wrote it into the Shadows lore is the fact that if you speak Sumerian, you're going to have an effect on the world itself. So when Arad swears or he curses, he's actually cursing.
Oh shit. Words matter, huh?
Like malignant, like he starts swearing.
They kind of like
Malignant
Terry Pratchett and Wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so may have borrowed that concept.
You were inspired.
But I was inspired by the concept.
There you go.
But
Tangle
it's
mom.
like he swears and like there's effects. But he's that kind of, he's just curious. He's a kid in a candy store. Like he got his arm blown off the last time I played him. His arm was completely blown off. We were in a Miltech facility, and that's the last I heard of him.
Yeah, we gotta
Because-
refine that character and rebuild him.
I'm sure we'll
did.
accidentally run into him.
Because he's that playful character who just wants balance. But the thing is, he understands, unlike the werewolf clans today, what it truly means. And we actually beat the curse of werewolf with this character.
Wow.
We role played and everything succeeded in him beating the werewolf curse. So he can still take his Chronos form, but his Chronos form actually has light blue Sumerian glyphs on it, like tattoos. And then when he's in human form, the spirit wolf that they were bound to in the beginning is right next to him. And he's just as powerful as a werewolf. But he's got a spirit wolf right next to him that can attack spirits and do spirit shit. So it's kind of like a utility, because that's what they were originally purposed to be, but they got consumed because humankind couldn't really conceive of the concept of the madness of those old wolf spirits, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we were moving the arc towards him actually going to meet with Vasile and the werewolf clans because of a werewolf called Ivan. Do you remember that dude?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Ivan because I think, kicked Ivan's son's ass or his pack's ass?
Yeah, he had Ivan's pups were out running around and being more or less atrocious and uncivilized. And
As you do.
well, because the thing about that is that werewolf kind has gotten to be bestial and sort of lost their direction. They don't know what they're there for, so they just kind of do their own thing. They just kind of envelop themselves into the rage, and they're lost. And so the thing about that is that they've lost their sort of civility, and that's what Arad brings to the table, is that he's a civilized kind of werewolf, you know. And so they were basically cocking off, doing their normal punk thing, and he happens to come across them, and like more or less like a grandpa who sees a bunch of kids being really rude to some of their neighbors, walks out and he's just like, "You kids need to knock that shit off," more or less. And of course, he never even transforms, not even once. Like, and then they're all like, you know, fuck you, screw you, old man, whatever, like being dumbasses. And they all start to
Regret that?
oh, they regret it all right. He literally, without transforming whatsoever, just takes the blade that he carries and more or less teaches them, every last one of them, what combat's really about. Like, and stays calm the entire time because they all transform. There was like 3 or 4 of them, and he whops all of them. So they go tell Daddy. Daddy's not too impressed that they got whooped, but he's like, still got to be answered because he's alpha. Meets up with the Rod and is just like, yeah, you guys are idiots. Like, more or less, telling his own pups, it's like, you guys are morons. You should have smelled him from the very beginning. And you know, just they were like, but he figured it out.
And he was convincing Ivan to go through the process too.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is they were going to go to the table saying like, no, you have essentially forgotten your way. I'm just here to just kind of tell you that you did. He, however, made the choice.
Right.
And just kind of point at Ivan, and Ivan's just like, I feel so much better now. Not so angry.
Yeah, well, because he was trying to get him away from using the rage as their primary crutch. But yeah, so there's lots of good shit in all of that.
Yeah, so that's what kind of inspired the direction of moving this towards Origin, and what was the werewolf's intrinsic role? How were they created? And that's where I go into the fact that humanity was losing that battle, so they bound these chaotic wolf spirits to their greatest warriors.
Yeah.
And the greatest warriors he was called the Wolf King. And that's where I get into the whole Enki and Ayana to bring in when we were dealing with Rosifus Odinson hunting Ayana.
So the funny thing is that if Arad ever actually encounters a gargoyle, which I don't think he has yet, but if he ever encounters a gargoyle, he'll actually recognize them as the Anunnaki.
Okay.
Because they are of extraterrestrial origin, actually. And
Extraterrestrial.
Yes. Gargoyles and shadows are extraterrestrials. They just have been more or less abandoned after, I think it was like 3rd or 4th century. They got left behind, and a generation of them stuck around, which is why you see renditions of them on Notre Dame and stuff like that before the burning and so forth. The gargoyles were kind of a thing, and they were always seen as kind of protectors, but spooky. So, but they had like advanced technology and shit like that. But they also had direct effects on the the Sumerian and stuff like that, and they were referred to as the Anunnaki.
Yeah. So you have
skeletons.
So you have that concept of things that I played out with that, and but it's like, this is the werewolf's role. This is their perspective. Then we take this perspective and we write the vampire story because it parallels them so much.
So, something that I want to add to all of that, so the origin part of it is going to lead to a bunch of stuff, and these supplemental books, like I said, they're going to be a part of every major archetype, really. I mean, like the Nephilim, the vampire, the zombies, or Walking Dead, all of them are going to have their merit. And there'll be because there's just so much There's just so fucking much. But you throw that in there, and then like the concept that really hasn't been brought up. The whole thing about it is that there are beings out there that are just considered to be, and they don't really have a name, but I refer to them as pillars. They are pillars or fundaments of like all of the creation that are in and around them. You basically got really close whenever you entered that garden. You actually were speaking to, the what do you call it? The caretaker. The caretaker is a very close tier to an actual pillar. You guys have met a pillar, and that was actually Lucifer. So he's actually one of the pillars of creation, like an actual full blown. There's nothing that can cause him to be destroyed or denied. His energy exists, and therefore there he is. Although he would declare that he's woefully misunderstood.
He would.
Yeah, he would. That's just the way he operates, though. There's just so much to throw into it, and I kind of want to shift over because I think Scott's question is completely valid. I want to.
Yes, Scott. He left, and now he's going to talk about your question.
He just got tired of waiting.
He's done. He's just done.
By the way, what we're listening to is something I was experimenting with. All the music that is playing now is actually royalty free, and it's really good.
Oh, you actually went through some of the music you got that was royalty free?
No, I got these separate and purchased them because they were like so high quality. I was like, these are amazing. So these individual tracks and stuff like that are royalty free, but you just have to buy them, and that's fine. So I ended up buying these ones because I was like, I like the way they sound, man. And there's a lot of different categories, so I'll probably end up employing some of them whenever we actually get to doing the fat.
That's cool. You're building like a
record, I was
playlist.
stealing my kids' Easter candy.
I
could hear you
Easter
guys.
Candily.
I've been looking for Easter candy to buy for like 50% off or whatever it is. Nobody fucking has any. There's nothing left. I went to the dollar store and they have those crappy Russell whatever they are, like chocolate eggs that nobody eats. Like, and I'm sitting there going like, I want the eggs and shit like that, yeah. And I'm going like,
Give me those eggs.
yeah, the eggs really.
Well, I mean, that helps me, so thanks. That's going to help me work on that.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Yep.
But
I still want to be a garlic bread cleric in your D&D game.
Make it so.
You could be the chef of the guard unit.
Don't fuck with the cook in the military, man. Don't ever do it.
No joke.
Bad choice. So the question that was proposed was, how do you manage to gauge appropriate encounters, etc., when dealing with that? And obviously, there's the ever-present question of escalation, since the characters will advance, and how do you increase the threat, and so on. Or probably the best term is power creep, because it's just the way that power creep works in Shadows. It's very organic, sort of.
Is it the Gates principle? Power creep, get it?
Yeah. Ha 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 ha! Oh wow! I didn't catch that until just now. You're like,
That was good.
And so I'm sitting there like, ooh, like, I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was good. That was exactly the response I was looking for, actually. Because when I thought of it, I was like, oh, gross. So I had to say it.
Yeah.
Is this an unaccompanied minor?
All right.
Man, I really hope he pays.
I think he's
Anyway.
already paying. Like, to me, he's already on that spiral down. It's not
That's
gonna
the
get
whole
better.
issue. He's been paying.
For a low rate.
Oh man. Okay, so the question at hand, as opposed to somebody else's dalliances in the sexual arena. So, I'll tell you how I usually gauge it, and it's kind of. I had to take a look at it probably some years back because I was like, how is it that I know that how do I know that an opponent is going to be something worthwhile? How do I know that there's going to be a decent fight and all the rest of it? Because it's not as simplified to say like challenge rating or whatever, but there is kind of there's kind of a way that you look at a character sheet or a villain or an opponent or an enemy or a group of enemies, and you can kind of assess what would work. There's kind of like the rule of 10, which is you have the die, which is a D10, and it does have the tendency to be able to explode and go up into really high ranges and allow for something crazy to happen. But the rule of 10 is basically this: if you are 10 above, like if your skill rank or your natural like base is 10 ranks above that which you would actually try to compete against, whatever is that is more or less unable to really truly do anything with you. You've gone beyond that, so you can use that as your scale, because if you hit 0, meaning that you're exactly even, that on average, because you have to look at the average, that's kind of when you're looking at the character sheet, like their best rolls, where do they sit, and that kind of stuff. Are they hitting numbers kind of like with the gun kata and the rest of it? Because we tweaked the way that worked, you're hitting a much higher number than you normally would. And because it's martial arts, it has this wider range of capability, meaning you can use it for things like dodge. He's the only character in Shadows, I can tell you this right now, he's the only one who actually dodges bullets and isn't technically like using a supernatural speed to do it. He's using some sort of vague metaphysical philosophy that he can move himself in a geometric form that would make him look ridiculous in any other format, but literally can avoid gunfire by standing in a certain position. And it's just enough. Like, it basically tweaks out that he can anticipate angles of fire and avoid the shots. And it's a ridiculous concept, but what's funny is that, like, what if he were tapped into it? So it's kind of like he's created a habitual precognizance, and so that's what the ability is. But his numbers basically demonstrate that. That's how he can pull that shit off. So when you're looking at the ranges, you can apply that to the kinds of opponents. So the rule of 10 is if you're 10 points above flat, so if you're flat 10 points above your enemy, you basically roll to do your attacks just to make sure you don't screw up, and they get to take it. They just take it. They're considered cannon fodder. Or if you go against an opponent who has 10 above you, they basically automatically win that contest. You can still roll and maybe get an exploding shot, and kind of like when Tony Stark manages to hit Thanos in the head and make him bleed, that was kind of one of those lucky shots.
All of that for this.
A drop of blood, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's where maybe you're not dying right away, but whatever the hell it is, they are surpassing you so greatly, or you're surpassing them. So the rule of 10 is a really good basic template for how powerful are you. And that ranges across the board, so you just average it in your mind. If you're looking around, on average, they're hitting anywhere between 22 and 28. And if they're coming against somebody else who rolls, a 15 to 22, you'd be like, yeah, these guys are going to really whale this other guy because their low average rolls are right down where they're basically just shitting that out for breakfast.
Where was Copperfield rolling?
Copperfield rolls above you guys. He was somewhere, magically speaking. Sorry. This is somebody.
Well, that's a good sign. Oh, okay.
No, somebody sent me a really wild gif. The thing about it is that where Copperfield was rolling, like, he has incredibly high intellectual skills. Like, he would surpass most everybody in there. Like, he's way the fuck up there. But he has, combat-wise, he's good, but he's not better. He's, like, right on par with you. Where he differentiates is the magical capacity, which is why he was able to create a whole summoning circle like that and start creating a tear.
When we were having those contested rolls, that difficulty 10 was always there.
Yeah. without it, you're gonna wind up overdoing it or underdoing it depending on how you go. So you always just kind of think about, okay, if I'm gonna build a specific enemy, I want them to be better than the group at this point. But you have to take into account that if it's a group V1, you have to go like, okay, they basically have multiple attacks. How can they sustain that? You have to kind of think about it creatively. It's no different than everything else, which is very, very dynamic. But the basic line is skills, powers, and checks all tell you what to expect. And you just stay within that 5 to 7 point range if you want it to be a good contest, or you keep it down to a 3 to 5 range if you want it to be a close match. Because that way, because eventually the dice will either, exalt someone or fuck someone else. So it's one of those things you can't really play on it too much. You just want to make sure that they sit within that range of it. And it really does help whenever you're doing that. So it's like average 5 to 7 higher if you want it to be somewhat difficult. If you want it to be like 8 to 9 higher, that's like, yeah, this guy's a real problem. Because that means that maybe one person or two out of a group can match him okay, while the rest of them can't. So it really plays down to efficacy in those roles, and it makes a huge difference in that sense. But
so, if you were trying to place opponents, they're like a GM isn't going to necessarily have like a monster manual sort of thing, right? They can come up with a concept and then kind of just scale it to that level. So we're going to have a kind of robotic shooter person. Okay, at this level they're a hit mark. At this level they're a
Yep. And then the second foundation there. What's up, Bill?
Maybe that would be something that would be a good initial write-up for you to help us as well.
Yeah.
Is you actually writing out a hit mark.
Yeah.
An agent. A scent. That's what I'm referring to, like the other ones. Like because we haven't, or is an agent above a scent. I can't remember.
I actually have been starting to do that. I've got a build for a hit mark, and I've got a build for an outsider currently running.
Nice.
So I will be
good job, dude.
these things. I'll be producing these things soonish. But like I said, it's one of those things where the dynamic element of this homebrew system means that you take a basic, like I said, you take a fundament like the skill, or because it really does boil down. This is what's great about Shadows again, is that it really boils down to what are the baseline skills or baseline offensive, defensive capabilities, and you just look at those, average them out in your own head, and you're like, okay, this is where everybody can kind of meet, and where they're either too far or too low, too far above or too far below, and you can really put it in there, like I said, because that's literally the only thing I've ever really done when it comes to who do you guys compete against. Okay, well, their roles have to be somewhere within this range point. Whatever their special abilities are, that's where the GM can kind of throw in the extra fuck you whenever they want to have an opponent that has something unique, because they can throw in something that nobody's ever seen before, which Shadows is very good for doing. What is happening?
He's showing off his mouth and the
Shut off my mouth.
Ah, it has lights on it.
It does. I like it. Let's see, look. No wires.
Yep. Wireless mouse, man. Yeah.
And you
I
got
still have yours that you gave me.
that World of Warcraft mouse for all your
Abomination.
Oh yes. It works for Valheim too.
I bet that would be really good for weapon swapping.
It's really good for weapon swap in Valheim. I
So
just
it
have
looks like
one
it's
for my shield, and then 2 for the sword, and I can just bind it to R, so I hit and it does a both and back.
I like
Wireless.
the ones with the wings on it, like he's got. Those are interesting.
You mean the space shuttle? This is the shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
One of my coworkers has a penguin mouse. It's a vertical mouse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've
because
seen those.
Yeah, those are for people that have specific.
Yeah,
issues.
she's got an ergo.
Ergonomic. It's called an ergonomic mouse, so you can.
Yeah, it's
You
insane.
like hold it like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Super weird.
she's like super fast at it. I remember the learning curve was huge, but she's like sitting in the office. I'm like, it looks like you have a joystick, like you're piloting your computer.
Which is awesome.
Time to go into the net.
Well, guys, I'm gonna end a little early because I need to help Angela with some cat problems. But it was fun. Bill, still incredible what you've done with with the werewolves. I can't wait to see more of this world being built.
Absolutely. Hey, hope everything goes well with cats. And,
Oh yeah, it's just making sure we need to cat-proof parts of the room because they're getting into stuff they shouldn't be getting into. So you know,
Yeah,
cat
speaking
stuff.
of which, I literally had to like go in there and chase Pickle out of my bathroom because she was unwinding all of my damn toilet paper again.
I hear
Hey,
that.
that's just a problem that children do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm
Oh,
past
yeah.
that with my kids, thank goodness. Yeah, and I can't take a croquet mallet to my children, but I can definitely attempt it with the cat. Just
I dodged a fucking bullet on that one. My son did that and then stuffed the entire goddamn roll in the toilet paper and was about. And I heard silence and I walked by just
fucking
as he
silence
was
every time.
fucking flush it.
Every goddamn time, dude. It's silence that
That's
terrifies.
Abby. That's Abby.
Screamed at my son. I'm sorry. It was the no.
Oh, I'll never forget whenever like my son ended up taking a plastic prism that he found somewhere and decided like, I wonder what this does down here. Clunk, floosh. Cost me $300 and a gigantic freaking like. This guy had to take an industrial snake because it got lodged side. It was like that situation in Egypt not too far recently.
You guys have a good night.
You too, man.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
So he sued it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I'll focus on putting out something that has the write-up for this, and I'll start coming up with some basic templates because that's really what it's going to take. It's just I'm trying to formulate the actual template, and I want to have it be involved enough that you can go through and read it. Something similar to say out of the Monsters Manual, you could go through and read it more or less.
Right.
But because of the complexity level, it does mean there's more information needed. So I just have to come up with a formatting, which is where I'm struggling.
Yeah, I totally get it. My thought is, you know, if someone wanted to run it and they don't have you,
Yeah, I've got to figure out how to
Right.
pass the buck here. Yeah.
which is my absolute skill at work, coming up with these amazing projects that we have to do, and then failing to hand it off to someone else. And so then we go to do the, you know, performance review or whatever, and my boss is like, so tell me, what have you been working on? And I was like, all right, let's just start flipping through because I have 27 things that take 2 hours a week to do because I have never been able to hand it off to someone else. Yeah, that's the thing for me is I'm like, and even looking through like other source books, right? There's not a real good clear picture of this is what an enemy looks like, this is what a challenge looks like, but you can't build them the same way you build the player characters.
And that's kind of the problem with Shadows as well, because you know how oddball do the characters get, and how do look at it this way: we've been able to synergize.
Synergy
Are-
system.
The way that we fight to the extent that we're destroying things, which means D is having to ramp up how fucking evil he can get.
Yeah.
And that's
We're getting
another-
casters now.
Because that's another thing is that's another thing is you know when we do the core rule book and the GM handbook as well, and I would suggest that we put in the same just suggestion that says so here's some guidelines, and put air quote, because what it comes down to is when things really truly synergize within a group, you can take those concepts of those characters between 10 above, 10 below, but collectively, the group can destroy that 10 above, 10 below.
Yeah.
If they're smart enough.
So
yeah,
how-
So that's. Yeah, they have to be smart working together and that kind of stuff, and not play by the standard rules, which is what Shadows does to a person is basically go like, why do we have to fight this fucking dude? Why don't we do this? Which is, part of the fun of it for me.
But the other aspect is maybe we can conceive of it in more of a tactical approach. Is the fact that you have your initial counter. Think of your initial counter as a forward scout, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have your initial counter as a forward scout, but because they're part of like multinational corporations and everything else, there are open channels and lines of communication where essentially you can have an encounter. Well, if the counter is going poorly, then you basically have in the rest of the cavalry on it for the villain, so to speak, because that's the way that societal operations work, which is the one tactical unit. If that doesn't work, then
Well, and depending on if it's a more corporations heavy versus
Right, because you can
supernatural.
do theme and genre very much so,
Yeah.
Play their part.
But I like that idea of having at hero level you're dealing with security guards. At the more like you ramp it up, now you're dealing with dudes with magic sunglasses and suits. One level up, you're dealing with people who are augmented. Like,
but at the same time, you can have like the encounter, and if that synergy clicks, then you have like what we faced last time, which is those portals which kept on pumping things out.
right, and that rate of fire can change with the GMs.
So
They seem to be dying. I'm gonna back it up a little bit. Oh, they're mowing through it. Oh, now there's 3 portals. Like,
yeah.
maybe we can term it in the sense of GM's rate of fire.
well, I think one thing that is very helpful is
When a GM has to switch to full auto.
right, having a hook module or something like that, I think would be really critical to this being successful, even if it's just like a short story. A night in Night City, you run into 2 NPCs, you encounter some street level thugs, and then a supernatural thing, and then it kind of like leaves and like, okay, Night City is yours to explore. Where will it take you?
I think what I'd probably end up doing, not to rip off Destiny 2, but I would probably call that book an escalation protocol. I would actually call the book something like that. Because
No, I think here's the thing: is that's not. I don't see that as ripping off Destiny. I think that's actually a really appropriate term.
Yeah, well, because that's what it is. You're starting at one level, and then it enhances and goes to a second, it goes to another, and goes to another, because that's exactly. And escalation protocols, what the characters do, they escalate. They become much more advanced, more powerful, so on. And and I'm thinking that as far as like classifications are concerned, because that will help. I know, with me being a creative force, I don't have a problem with the sort of obscurity in the various setup, right? Like I could say, like, these guys are really awesome. They could do really well against your guys. These guys wouldn't be. Like, I can determine all of that without having names and stuff like that. But that's because I just know this shit from inside out. But if I want to try and broadcast the same thing, I don't know. There's going to be a lot, because I am almost positive that there will be some really, 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 really munchy munchkins that are going to want to go out there and min-max. There's going to be rules lawyers that are going to be desperate to get their hands on the mechanics and try to tweak them out to where they only follow a certain way. And there's going to be the more analytical and less creative, which, that is... It's the more, like the creative side of this, and because it's so much more creative, it'll attract people that love the numbers and how they all fit together, because the algorithms to me are gorgeous. I love the way they all fit, especially the fucking armor situation. Like, seriously, I'm still gushing about it. Like, it's such a huge relief. I feel like my brain got a massage because it was killing me. Like, but
Oh, good.
but the so there are mechanics hard enough to follow, and if I classify it in terms of like this is lower tier, mid tier, upper tier, like, and I can go through and basically classify like in its own way the monster manual, whatever. I could classify encounters in that particular way in a general vague sense, but still give it, if you're going to deal with a god tier, you'd better be hero or god tier yourself. So that way it just isolates down, so that way somebody who's less analytical can look at that and go like, this is going to be an appropriate challenge for the group. Or somebody who's more analytical can go through and just check out the numbers, like what I was just saying, which is the rule of 10 and the rest. And they can just do it that way by that kind of diagnosis. It just leaves options. Because I'm very big on choices.
With an escalation protocol and rapid fire.
Yeah.
Like, so we'll switch from rapid fire to escalation protocol, but like an escalation protocol within combat and combat mechanics basically negates min-maxers.
Yeah. Well, because the system itself is very self-sustaining, and it punishes people for stupidity as opposed to just warranting, like, that shit. I think this group almost didn't even make it. First major encounter, the entire team almost got completely wiped out because Ivar botched on his, like, major, like, for all the things that he's done, with all the crazy shit he's pulled off with his reality manipulation, he hasn't gone balls out like that since. He's not gone completely nuts since that time. He's kept it under wraps a bit. Because natural consequence is such a bitch.
Did you guys ever play the game Oni?
Yeah.
Sounds really familiar. Probably.
Like 15 years ago, Bungie game. Very Ghost in the Shell type game.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my absolute favorite games. It's back, I think, before Bungie became a Microsoft subsidiary, and the way that they had the escalation of enemies, and it's cyberpunk era, so there was nothing supernatural, but you had like your kind of run-of-the-mill security guards, and then you have like the enhanced ones, then they had like the ones in mech suits and stuff like that. And I'm thinking like that would just be a perfect run through of like, here's your level 1 wave, you fight 3 of those, then you go up the stairs to the next level of security. It's like, then you get up to the top floor and it's some computer brains, controlling everything. Like 9 mech suits or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, that's seeing that sort of, like you said, escalation protocol. That's like a Destiny event, right? Like,
yeah, it was
where
on
you just
Mars
go through the
before
waves.
that's before they got rid of it. But yeah, it's where it was one wave after another, and they got more intense as they went on.
Yeah, that I think that'll be a cool way to kind of flesh that out, because I know that's the part that I would struggle with, is like the role-playing part is a lot easier to freewheel and adapt, but it's like, okay, but we have to resolve this scene with an encounter. How do I make it so the players don't steamroll it, or that they get steamrolled? Because it's not fun either way, right?
Right. Well, it can wind. Well, it depends on kind of like the GM, I suppose. Like if they, in my case, if you guys completely steamroll an enemy of mine, I'm going like, fuck, I gotta up my game. Like, when it came to Copperfield, when you guys started to synergize together, when you guys started to do that, like, even with the fact that I was just like, oh, cool, so he's going to have his shield belt, and, like, I had all this stuff in my head, but you guys are like, get him! Like I said, it's one of those problems when dealing with a 1v-many situation. He, one-on-one with pretty much all of you would be a very powerful threat. It would be very difficult to beat him. And, as a group, like I said, it was one of those things where I had to try and gauge how it all went. He's still competent, but my dice hated me. So they wouldn't let him get the shots off that I was really hoping for. But I enjoy that kind of I don't know. For whatever reason, like, not every encounter goes the way I expect it, because, you know, you may have throttled, you know, Copperfield in his greatest moment and managed to cause him to go on the run, which I wasn't fucking expecting, so now he's somewhere else trying to recover for himself, and he had something else going on. But you guys managed to stop that original plan he had in more ways than I was expecting. But I can tell you, the situation will flip, and the dumbest of circumstances will get everybody all fucked up. And that is going to be the hilarity to me, because there's always a back ripple on those kinds of things. So I don't know what it's going to be. It could very well end up being a pixie with a very mischievous mind showing up somewhere and doing some really crazy shit, stealing a particular item, who knows. But there's always something stupid that happens, and I don't know, it's a blast either way. But yeah, I want the encounters to be lasting and memorable. Like, they should feel like, you know, like, do you remember that fight? Holy shit. Like the one that still gets me is when you guys were escaping the Angelic Gulag. So, you know, the Abyssal Cathedral.
Well, yeah.
That still strikes me, because you guys damn near lost, you know, Ivar, for crying out loud. And he's kind of the icky, sticky glue that's keeping everybody together right now, just with some of the shit he does. Like, he's the
Drew is an instigator, like, as a player.
Yeah.
Drew is an instigator, so you need that. Like, Bill's the RPer, Drew's the instigator. Like, those two will destroy any campaign, because you need those, right? If you have a bunch of people who are, you know, loot goblins, then it's like, okay, well, why are we even showing up to play?
Right. Yeah. No, I get a really huge kick out of it. I'm looking forward to next week being that we all get back together again and finish up this encounter, and I can start putting these fight mechanics directly into it, because, you know, like I said, I'm finally getting it to flesh out. And like I said, it does get a little bit foxy at the edges sometimes, because I'm sitting there like, I do know what I'm doing, but it's not been solidified, so it's really nice to have it sort of like formulating and crystallizing as I'm writing this whole thing out. And like I said, the really big stumbling block for me was the damn armor. And finally that's out of my face, and I can focus on the rest of it. And whenever I get this first draft fully completed, I'm going to shove it into the core rulebook and then let you power wizards of editing get after it. Because that's the least fun for me. I don't mind editing really, but there's just the content itself has got to get out of me first, and so I just kind of like, just tell me what's wrong with it and I'll go through and fix it. But trying to find the problems is next to impossible in my case.
And that's why you have me and Ken to
You guys and your incredible analytical brains, like,
sit there with that edit button.
yeah. And it's like, and I'm not at all afraid to have somebody be like, hey, this is stupid, and I'm like, yep, you're right, that's stupid, you know. So like, I just got to be able to make it work, because whenever this thing is all said and done, I want this to be like, you know, I want this to be like the underground system that really makes an impact, and it gets, you know, like, highly popular on some level, but, you know, maybe gets talked about in the same way that some people would be like,
Gaming community?
huh?
Boondock Saints of gaming?
Yeah. Yeah.
Without the whole getting Weinstein?
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, there's an interview that I saw with Troy Dopey. He just did it recently. It's a 2-hour interview where he basically comes out and says what actually happened.
Oh.
And you're just like, ooh. Ooh.
I don't know.
I know.
All right, I'm gonna take off.
Yep, I'm going to do the same. Which means, to our viewers out there, have yourselves a good night. Next week, fun and battle. We shall have it.
Pew pew pew.